and explain, the required sections in this paper. So just remember, this paper should have the following sections. I'm going to call them sections, but at least a paragraph for each one of these. Okay, so I'm going to go into each one a little bit. For your introduction paragraph, first, if you are using section headings, I think it helps. The student samples that you're going to look at, the majority of them have section headings, so that'll make it a little clearer. Write the word introduction at the top of the paragraph. That lets the audience know this is the introduction paragraph. What should go in the introduction is all of this. So while you're writing these essays, keep this PowerPoint in front of you. This PowerPoint's available for you to download, and keep it in front of you so that you know what should go in each section paragraph before you move on to the next one. The introduction, that's the only place where you should summarize your genre. You want to be audience aware and assume your audience has never heard of your genre. So that kind of technical information should go first. So think of your audience. Before you analyze something, you have to explain what it is first. It should include, the introduction paragraph should include all of this. What is the title of your genre? Meaning, what is it called? If you chose a song, what's the song title? Whatever the title of the genre is. Where can the audience find it? This is important for me as well, so that if it's not a link that you found online, I know where to access it. So where can the audience find it? Where can they access it? Who created the genre? Who's the author or creator of the genre? Now, this is the only place where you summarize. Main summary of it. And what I mean by that is, what is the article about if you chose an article? If you chose a music video, what's the music video about? What happens in the advertisement? What's the movie, TV show, documentary, book about? Just overall, you're just explaining the plot or the overall summary of the genre. Now, it's tempting to write a lot in a summary, and sometimes you're practicing, and it's common for students in composition courses to write too much summary, and that's okay. I just want you to get in the habit of, you don't need to summarize it too much, maybe 3-4 sentences at the most. And then before you move on, you need to end this paragraph with a thesis statement. Remember, the thesis statement states the overall point of your paper. So what is the purpose of your paper? What is the audience going to find out after they read the introduction? So you might want to mention in that thesis statement, that one sentence, mention the rhetorical appeals. So here's an example of a thesis for an analytical paper. This paper will apply the 3 rhetorical appeals of persuasion to determine if it's a persuasive genre. That's you telling the audience what type of paper it is. It's going to apply the rhetorical appeals. You may even want to say analyze instead, so they know what type of essay genre it is. They know that the rest of the paper is going to examine those rhetorical appeals of persuasion in more detail. And it kind of doesn't spoil whether it's persuasive or not, so the audience gets to find out. If you'd rather have your thesis be even more clear, and if it was a very persuasive genre, you can change it around and say something like, this paper will analyze the rhetorical appeals of persuasion to prove that it's a persuasive genre. That makes it you kind of proving, almost arguing to your audience that it is a persuasive genre based on your own observations that you found. Some kind of thesis that explains it. And that's your introduction. So introduction shouldn't be too long because the rest of the paper is even more important. So, and again, after the introduction, it doesn't really matter what order you go in, but this is the order that I'm suggesting. But you need to analyze audience. And what I mean by audience, now if you're using section headings, write the word audience at the top of the paragraph so that your audience knows that the introduction is done, and now you're going to really start analyzing. If you want to just use a topic sentence, just explain what an audience is first. And then answer all of the following questions with the audience paragraph. Who is the audience of your genre? Don't say everyone, because not everybody's impacted by every little thing. So think of the age. Is it gender specific or not? Location, interest groups, etc. Don't say everyone, because it's difficult for everyone to be impacted by your genre. Why are they the audience of your genre? So don't just stop with who, answer why. Always think of the word why when you write analysis papers. When you say why, when you answer why, that makes it less summary and more analytical. Remember, you're always explaining why. So that's it for the audience paragraph. So let's move on to the purpose. Purpose paragraph. Sometimes students combine audience and purpose together into one paragraph section. That's fine too. Again, move on and write the word purpose at the top of the paragraph as the new section heading, or make sure you have that topic sentence that explains purpose first so that the audience knows the rest of that paragraph is analyzing purpose. What is the purpose of your genre? Is it to inform, persuade, entertain, etc.? And how can you tell what's the purpose? Is there a certain moment in the genre, a certain scene, a certain soundbite, a certain paragraph or sentence in the article? Something. Why is that the purpose? And that's it for purpose. And ethos. Okay, so the rest of this paper is probably the most important part because this part makes it a rhetorical analysis. So now we need to move on to the rhetorical appeals. So if you start with ethos, first write the word ethos at the top of the paragraph. If not, your topic sentence, well, regardless, your topic sentence should be, whether you have a section heading or not, your topic sentence should be a definition of the word ethos. How can you just define ethos? Try to define it in your own words. What does ethos mean? Because if you start by just analyzing ethos, your audience might think, I don't know what ethos is. I don't understand. You're kind of teaching them, too, what the rhetorical appeals are. So defining them makes your paper more audience aware. So start with the definition of ethos. What does it mean? You have to do this because you have to assume your audience is unfamiliar with the word. After you define ethos, the rest of this paragraph section must have examples of how your genre uses ethos. Whenever you find an example from your genre, immediately explain why that's an example of ethos. The movie character proves her knowledge of cars by using these specific words that only those experienced with mechanics would understand, automobiles, mechanics, and such. That makes you prove to the audience that you would know how to identify ethos in a genre, and it also makes it an analysis by proving examples to correspond together. Does your genre lack ethos? Sometimes it does. Don't skip this section. That would hurt your grade. Instead, explain whether or not it needs more ethos or why it's fine the way it is. That helps you analyze the conventions of the genre a little bit more. For example, a song is not going to be referencing sources and research and well-known people constantly, right? Because it's the genre of a song. Its convention is to entertain and maybe invoke emotion a little bit more. But I'm sure you could find some kind of way, if it was a song you were analyzing, of how the song proves credibility still. So that's something to think about. You must use these words in your paper because that makes it a rhetorical analysis paper. So make sure you use the word ethos in your essay. Pathos, exact same thing that we just talked about, but with pathos instead. Start with the word pathos as a section heading. Even if you don't have, whether you have a section heading of pathos or not, define what pathos is because your audience may not know. What are examples of pathos in your genre and why and how? Think of pathos. Remember, emotion can be words, it can be sound, it can be face expressions. There's different ways. It can be colors. You can really utilize all the senses with the rhetorical appeals, with pathos especially. So, any examples you can find, not just one. Find as many examples as possible with all three rhetorical appeals. Again, does it lack pathos? If so, why? Does that meet the conventions of the genre, or is it okay, or does it need more pathos? Again, make sure you're using the word pathos. Logos, again, hint, hint, as you can probably already determine, same exact thing. Section heading, and whether or not, make sure you have the definition of what logos is in your own words. What examples of logos and why is that logos? Always remember the why with this. You must use the word logos in your essay. I think you probably get the hint of where this is going now. So you don't want your essay to end there because your audience will read that and think, okay, wow, that came to an abrupt stop. So you need some kind of closing paragraph. You can title it conclusion as well as a section heading, but this is where you can state your opinion if you want. You can say, this genre persuaded me personally because, and you state why. But also don't forget that this is an analysis essay, so you want to evaluate here in the conclusion. That's really important. And what I mean by that is, which of the 3 rhetorical appeals did it use the most of? Which did it use the least of? Did it persuade you? Why or why not? Some students break away into first-person point of view for the conclusion only. You can too if you want. And what I mean by that is you can start using the word I. I was persuaded only in the conclusion. Or you can keep it third person throughout. That's up to you. So helpful hints. Make sure you understand what each rhetorical appeal means. If you need my help, stop by office hours. I can help you with that. Use that PowerPoint that we are examining this week to make sure you're correctly identifying each one. Keep the paper in third person, they, them, it, the genre, this paper, so that you don't force the audience to take your side. You do have a thesis that's determining how it persuaded you, but you're keeping it a little more formal. Again, example of third person, the genre uses ethos by showing the company name at the end of the advertisement. Okay, why? This is an example of ethos because it's how they use their brand to gain trust. They. Example of first person, which is incorrect. I found ethos in the genre when I saw the company name at the end. I think this is ethos. It's a quick fix, but just make sure you're keeping it at third. It gets you more practice for your real formal research essays as well. And the reason you're using section headings are recommended in this paper because you're really moving away from that 5-paragraph essay and you're getting more and more formal with your writing. Make sure page 1 is that title page, and then your actual paper starts on page 2.